So, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Most interviewers are not trying to throw you a curve when they ask you seemingly unrelated rapid-fire questions. Inquiring interviews just want to know, are you competent, capable, and is there good chemistry? Here on the 5th floor of the career elevator, we don't have a crystal ball, but we do have a rundown of the most common questions asked in an interview. Use them to guide your preparation process. Practice answering them, and your competence, compatibility, and chemistry will be obvious to any interviewer. Tell me about yourself.
One of the very best ways to tell an interviewer about yourself is to use the written Forte report, particularly page 4, that shows here are what self-motivates me. It lists 25 different attributes or strengths that you have, and it also lists 3 or 4 items that demotivate you, equally important to know. And you're handing it to them in a report provided by a third party that adds credibility to that whole process.
Tell me about your last job.
If the hiring manager asks about your last job, you obviously want to focus on significant accomplishments that you achieved in that job. You want to focus on things that are relevant to the job that you're currently seeking. You want to focus on, again, those intangibles, the leadership skills, the teamwork skills, the communication skills, and how you demonstrated that in the position. Focus on the positive and demonstrate how you can bring value to the new company.
What are your qualifications?
In many interviews, one of the most common questions that candidates are asked is, what are your qualifications, or tell me about your qualifications. And believe it or not, interviewers are kind of keyed to hear the same thing over and over again. I'm a team player, I'm a hard worker, I have a lot of enthusiasm, which is really meaningless to the interviewer. What you want to be able to do is put your qualifications into context either from your last job or from your previous school experience. So rather than talk about, I'm a good team player, say, in my last job, here's an example of when I really practiced being a good team player and how I got the team to work together effectively.
Where would you like to be in 5 years?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? This is another question that's one of my very least favorite questions, because so many people will think, oh, well, I want to come across as aggressive and say, I want to be in your chair in 5 years. Well, that doesn't tell me anything either. What I would rather see people do is to say, you know what, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I do know is that where I will be in 5 years is at a company that is acknowledging me for my accomplishments, that is challenging me, and where I feel rewarded and feel like a contributing member of the team.
What is your ideal position?
Another common interview question is, tell me about your ideal position. And truthfully speaking, this is not a bad question, because it gives you an indication to be creative and to take a look not at just your present job opportunity, but the future. So think about this before you come into an interview. Identify what your ideal job would look like. Talk about that with passion and with energy, and use that as an opportunity to really express your energy and your commitment to working for that organization to grow into your ideal position.
Tell me about a problem you had to solve. What did you do?
When people ask, tell me about a problem that you had to solve, I use STARS. And the S and the T stand for situation or task. What was the situation or task? What was the problem? What was the idea? What was the challenge? Those are the things that you want to get across so that you set up the scope of the problem. Then the A is action. What did you do? The R is pretty straightforward. It's results. What happened as a result of your action? What did you do that would never have happened had you not been there?
What is your greatest weakness?
If you're in an interview and one of the questions is, and it most likely will be, what are some of your weaknesses, you can refer to the demotivators on page 4 of your Forte report, and rather than weaknesses, explain to the interviewer, these are the things that will demotivate me. And you totally move off the weakness piece to a very honest answer that has high value in that process.
If you were an animal, what kind of animal would you be?
I was actually asked a question one time in an interview where the person looked at me and said, estimate for me the square mileage of Mexico. I thought, I have no idea. But I said, okay, let me think about that. And I took about 30 seconds and planned my answer. And when I opened my mouth again, I had the structure, and I told him, I said, Here's how I see it. I said Mexico, as I remember it, at its widest point, runs from about California to Texas. If you flip Mexico up on its side, it would run from about California to Maine, you know, really the entire length of the U.S. So if you figure that California to Texas is about 1,500 square miles, and the length of the U.S. is probably about 3,000 miles, then what you can do is multiply that out. And I did that. I multiplied it out, and I said that's about what it would be divided by 2, because it's about an upside-down right triangle. And I'll never forget, because he looked at me and he said, you know, I never thought about approaching that as a geometry problem. The truth is, he didn't care what the answer was. It would have been a mistake for me to pull a number out of the air like 100 million. What he wanted to know is, how do I think? When I get a problem that I don't know the answer, how do I approach it? That's what you're going for.
Why should I hire you?
If a person asks, why should I hire you, your answer has got to be framed in the context of what it means to the company. They don't want to really hear about you. They want to hear about what you can do for the company. That's what your answer should be.
What are your salary expectations?
Responding to salary questions is very difficult in the interview process. Sometimes we're afraid that we may overestimate what the salary requirements are. But again, providing you've done research and you've understood what the market bears and what salary ranges are available for those positions, simply respond at the midpoint and let the individual know that you're open to negotiating that once a decision has been made about whether or not you're a good fit for that position.
How would you describe your previous manager?
If the hiring manager asks you about your previous manager, always stay positive. It can never benefit you at all to say anything negative about your previous manager. So focus on the positive aspects of your relationship. Focus on their managerial skills. Focus on their leadership, their communication, how you work together, and how you help that person look better in his or her job.
What did you like least or most about your last job?
The question of what you like least about your last job is actually a very common one that many interviewers ask, so you need to be prepared for that. Again, you want to stay positive, avoid anything negative, certainly avoid saying the thing that you like least being the very job that you're seeking to interview for right now. And you also want to put it in relative terms. So say that, you know, there wasn't anything that I really hated, but probably if I had to say the thing that I liked less than other things was X. I think it's an appropriate way to answer that.
Why do you want to work here?
If a person asks, why do you want to work here, you've got to tell them that you've studied their company and you see that they have the kind of needs that you can provide. You can solve their needs. You can fill their needs. And that's the reason that you've picked out that company.
It's not a job search unless you actually do some searching. So be prepared to ask questions of hiring managers. You don't want to walk away empty-handed, so dig for answers to at least 5 questions. Make sure that they can't be answered yes or no. Probe for details. Then listen to the answer for keys to unlock new questions that might lead to an offer.